Hi guys, welcome back to our channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking how to choose your perfect engagement ring for the chubby fingers. It's a very common task and we have a lot of requests about it, and I thought I would make a dedicated video for this specific task. We're going to be talking about everything. We're going to be talking about the general proportions because that's the thing that will determine the look of your engagement ring. We're going to be talking about the stones itself, what kind of stones, what kind of shape to choose, what kind of proportion of the stones to choose. We're going to be talking about the setting itself, how to make it durable and how to make it look right, because the balance of the setting affect the look of the engagement ring a lot. We're going to be talking about the metals as well, because you might be surprised, but the color of the setting will affect the look of the engagement ring as well. And we're going to be talking about a few other things. So let's get started. Let's start with the ring proportions. That's going to be the key to success over here. What you want to avoid two spectrums over here. You want to avoid the very thin band that is pretty common out there. But if you put it on your finger, it's not going to look good. It's going to visually enlarge your finger. You don't want this effect, obviously. If you're going to go on to the opposite side of the spectrum and you're going to get pretty big engagement ring, you're going to get the same effect. It's going to be way too bulky and it's going to highlight the chubby fingers. You don't want to have that. What you want to do, you want to stay somewhere in the middle. From our experience, the happy middle, the gold middle, whatever you want to call it, somewhere between 3 and 4 millimeters. What you want to have in your engagement ring, you want to have as many vertical elements as possible, whether it's a long nice stone, center stones, or the additional elements. You want it to be as long vertically as possible. That would make your finger looks longer. And with that, let's go to the second part. Let's talk about the gemstones itself. When shopping for the engagement ring for the chubby fingers, the crucial part of this would be to choose the right gemstone. Whether you're shopping for the diamond, whether you're shopping for the gemstone, doesn't really matter. We're talking about proportions over here. And I highly recommend to choose one of the stones that I'm going to mention. Of course, you're gonna go further and see what else is available. Those tips going to cover all kind of the gemstones. It doesn't matter whether you're shopping for the diamond or anything else. The proportion is the key over here. And there's a couple of shapes that I would recommend for the chubby fingers. First of all, let's start with the ovals. Ovals usually naturally just working just beautifully, but you want to get the specific proportion. For the oval, I would recommend to go around 1.4, 1.5, somewhere there. You can go higher and I will show the difference just right over here on the display, but probably you would want to stay right around this range. Same would work for the pear shape. The proportion is going to be slightly higher, so I would recommend to go around 1.4, 1.7, probably not lower than that, because in this case the stone going to be wider visually, and again you want to avoid this effect. The wider stone going to look great on the skinny finger. That's the opposite side of the spectrum. Another option that you can consider is a Marquise shape. That just works absolutely beautifully all the time. I really love when we're using it for this kind of cases. Over here, you want to look at the ratio around 1.7 to 2.2. That might be a little bit too extreme, but again, it's up to your preferences. 2.2 is just going to be quite long, again depending on your setting, depending on your design and all of those kind of things, so you have the choice. But I would definitely not recommend to go lower than that. And of course, any other shape that is remotely reminding you, those two shapes will work as well. You just have to pay attention on the ratio itself, and that's the beauty of making the custom engagement ring. You're in the control of everything, so you can choose pretty much everything what is going on with your engagement. At the same time, if you're going for the classic shapes, let's say the round stone, what you want to pay attention over here, you want to pay attention to the size, because if you naturally have a chubby finger, you don't want to get the small stone because it's not going to look good. It's just visually going to highlight the size differences between the stone and the fingers. If you, let's say, going for the diamond and you have the certain certain budget for the engagement ring, what we can do, you can go with the halo setting. That's just visually going to make it larger. Of course, if it's done right, and I have the separate video on what is the difference between the beautifully made halo engagement ring and not so. But naturally, it's going to make the center stone larger, and that's the exact effect you want to have. But if you go for the other gemstones and your budget allowing you to get the bigger stone, just get the stone itself bigger. Now, when we've talked about the center stone, let's talk about how we're going to secure them on the engagement ring and how it's going to change the overall look of the engagement ring. Here, I would recommend to go with the two settings. I would recommend to go with the classic prawn settings. And the reason is very simple. It's just going to elevate the stone itself, depending on the height you're going to choose. Again, the beauty of the custom rings, you can choose the height, how you want to set up your stone. But it's just in general going to elevate the stone itself, and it's going to bring as much light as possible to the ring itself. So it can spark, to the stone itself, so it can spark. Another way you can go, and I would recommend that from the durability point of view, another way you can go with the bezel setting. In this case, you're just naturally going to protect your center stone. It's going to be much more secure if you worry about this, and I would. Honestly, I highly recommend to pay attention on the durability of the engagement ring always, because that's what you're going to be wearing on a daily basis. It's going to spark a little bit less than in the prawn setting, but on the opposite side, it's going to give you this modern, sleek effect. It's just a matter of preference right over here. Of course, you can consider other settings as well, but that's the two I would recommend for this specific case. And of course, as I mentioned before, the halo settings. If you're going for the classic shape of the stone, or you have a certain limited budget for the stone and the size is not exactly what you want, so you want it to look a little bit bigger, you can always go for the halo setting. Make it right. This way you're going to get absolutely beautiful visual effect for your engagement ring. And now, before we're going into the metals specifically, because that's an important part of choosing the engagement ring for the chubby fingers as well, let's talk about the styles that you want to avoid, because I just mentioned which styles I would recommend to. Here's the one that you should avoid. First of all, as I mentioned before, the thin wedding band. You don't want to avoid that. Anything that less than 2 millimeters, I would not recommend, not because of the durability point of view, and that's a big portion as well, but it's just not going to look good. It's just going to highlight the chubbiness of the fingers, the proportions not going to be right. You just want to avoid that in general. And same on the opposite spectrum. You don't want to have too bulky design with a lot of ornaments, with a lot of details and stuff like that. You don't really need that. It's not going to look good overall. So I would highly recommend to avoid that as well. Other than that, you are free to do whatever you really want. There's multiple solutions for that, again, especially if we're talking about the custom piece. Now, when we covered proportions, stone shapes and proportions, when we talked about the styles and everything, let's talk about the metals. And you might think that it's not an important part, but it actually is, because naturally lighter metals as the white gold or the platinum, they would look smaller on your hands. They would just have more sparks. They're gonna send more light towards the center stone itself. It's just going to look lighter naturally on the finger, and that's if that's the effect that you're going to. And at the same time, if you're looking at your setting and you see that it's not too large, it's quite balanced and elegant, then you might want to consider the yellow tones of the gold as well. So that's an option, again, depending on the design itself. But what you want to remember in general, that lighter tones going to make your ring look visually smaller, and the warmer tones going to make it visually larger, heavier. And the last thing before the conclusion I want to mention is the sizing of your engagement ring. It's very important, I would say crucial, to choose the right size for your engagement ring when you're shopping for the chubby finger engagement ring. And here's why. The size is going to vary depending on the humidity, on the temperature, and all other. So in a few words, what I would recommend, I would recommend to go on Amazon and just buy the metal sizers, put them on the fingers and do your thing. Like literally go through your day, like wear it for a couple of hours and see how it is working for you, whether it's comfortable or not, because the comfort is going to play the crucial role on a daily basis. Also try the different sizes too. Let's say you put the size 8 on your finger, see how it feels. Then put the size like 8.5, see how it worked for you. Maybe it's a little bit more comfortable, maybe it's 7.5, and so forth and so on. That's the thing that you're not going to be able to do in a jewelry store, but you'll be able to do it in the comfort of your home. So that is very important. And that's pretty much all the things that I wanted to cover for this specific topic. Of course, there's lots of details that goes into it, and that's why we are here. We're always happy to help you when you're shopping for your engagement ring. And as I mentioned many times through this video, that's the beauty about making it. You can go and pick and twist it the way you want it for your specific needs out there. If you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.